This is Neil Bronstein, sitting in for Christina Sorrento, who's out this week. This is DRC for 2115 East Jefferson Street sketch plan. Do we have the applicant's team on the line?
Yeah, yes, we do.
Okay, sounds good. Troy, do you want to start? Troy Leftwich is here with the Mid-County Review Team. Troy, did you want to start or hand it off to the applicant? Or?
No, I can start.
Okay.
Let me just turn off everything. Crazy episodes.
One second, and we're going to bring the plan up. So what you're doing, Troy?
There we go.
Can you see our screen, Bob?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
So they can just, they can hear me just do it off.
Yeah, go ahead.
So overall, I think we didn't want to spend too much time on this particular layout because our staff is going to present our alternative layout. But overall, I think we're okay with the use. We appreciate the buffer that's being set with the open space and that forest conservation area in the rear. We would need to kind of, you'll see within my comments where I wanted to break down the open space from the forest conservation easement area and then what's actually being counted towards what will be common open space since you're doing a townhouse product in that CR. So really just breaking it down between the 5% requirement and then the total that you're doing, kind of breaking those two components out. I think right now you're kind of looping it all in together and there's different type of activation that's going to occur in those spaces. I don't think regardless of what layout we land on, I don't think there's necessarily going to be an issue. I think outside of that, the other overall component was the public benefit points. I just really wanted to start from scratch on that. I think some of, there's just a couple of categories that with the through block and the structured parking, it's just fundamentally, we don't apply them that way. And then there was just some other ones. It was to the point we just probably need to just work from once we get the overall layout of what we land on, then we can kind of go through the public benefit points that we think is best appropriate for the project and not create any issues in regards to trying to justify them. I think that was kind of overall for mine. I had some statements in there to update the SOJ based on things that are just typically required, but we can talk about those in detail offline. I don't think we need to talk about that with the group. And I think at this point, I think it might be better for our urban design team or Natasha to kind of show the layout, and then we can kind of work from there from the other agencies to weigh in on their comments. 'Cause I think once we knew we were going to recommend a change in the layout, we kind of led the other lead reviewers or the other agencies to kind of have overall comments that would be consistent with whatever layout we was going to present them. So I think at this juncture, I think it'd be good for Natasha to share her if she's available.
Yeah, I'm here, Troy. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Natasha Fahim. I'm an urban designer of Mid-County. Sorry, I'm at the job site visit today this morning, so I couldn't be there in person. But the layout that we propose, I don't know, Troy, if you can share it on a screen that I can walk the team through it. It's just like we thought that we can come up with the scenarios that has a little bit better street hierarchy and street network and create a better connection to the surrounding neighborhood for future connections, if it's possible in future. So we thought that the layout that you guys are proposing, like obviously you are using the existing curb cut. We try to keep it the same, like that north-south connection that you're proposing along that easement, like it's fine. So I try to keep it the same. And as Troy mentioned, the green that you're proposing on the western side, that's fine as well. But we thought that internal east-west connection that you have, like all the houses are kind of like siding into it versus kind of fronting it to create a better pedestrian-oriented street, since that would be like your primary road into your development. And then the other aspect is like those long muses are creating a little bit like not too much connections to the street, and it creates some issues with the fire truck through the alleys as well. So the way that we kind of like propose the alternative layout and create the same amount of unit for you and a little bit better hierarchy of the open space and street design as well would be the alternative that Troy is going to share right now. So by creating, I don't know, Troy, do you have it that you can show it on the screen?
Yeah, I'm getting it up right now
Yeah,
as you
sure.
speak. Okay, that was the original.
Yeah, that's the original one. So what
And
the
then-
staff,
oh,
the urban design
sorry.
staff came up with, it would be this layout that by introducing another secondary roadway that kind of like loop towards south, you can create like a more street-oriented development. So what this layout is proposing, like all the houses are fronting to the street. Also, we are also proposing, if it looks like you guys were trying to get the stacked townhouse or 2/2s, we thought that the best location for them, it would be right at the main entry into your development to have like a better urban edge, or along East Jefferson to have like a better presence, since those are like a taller and bigger units. And then by introducing like a secondary road, then you can make sure that all your houses have presence into the street and create that urban environment and a better pedestrian oriented development. And then like we created like a smaller finger, and if you compare like our muse with your layout, like we make sure that we don't exceed that 4 and 5 units on the strings for those muses to create a more like an intimate open space rather than a really long and narrow and deep. And then all the north-south connections has potential for future connections as well as the alleys. And then as far as like an open space, like we put the kind of like an urban plaza right at the East Jefferson Street, and then like a 3 small, more intimate green open space for the neighborhood throughout the townhomes part. And then Troy, if you go to the second slide, I think I've tried to kind of explain the hierarchy of the street on our layout, and then the connectivity, pedestrian connections throughout the site, throughout the mid-block green that goes up north-south, parallel to your street section, to your north-south road that connects the greens, like the little muses into the bigger green. And then the same thing through your through block at the back of the townhomes. So that was like the suggestion that we had, and we thought that you guys may like look at your layout a little bit further to see if you can come up with, obviously like this is a hand sketch, so it needs to be put into CAD to make sure that the unit yield would be the same.
Okay, thank you for the comments, and even more so, thank you for all the thought you put into an alternative design for the site. We have looked at this, but we need to spend more time on it. We believe that some of your suggestions certainly can be accommodated, like the potential future connection near the rear of the site where that purple line is. That seems natural to us. We're not sure you need 3 connections along there, and particularly now that the properties to the north and south of us seem to be staying in more or less their current configuration. But we could accommodate the one that's farthest to the left there. we appreciate your comment about units fronting on the streets rather than sides. We're working on some alternatives to that, and we'll be, digging more deeply into your alternative. I will say there are a couple things here that do concern us, however, and I'm not sure, how far we can go in accommodating your interests. One is that this appears to have too many 2/2s for what we believe is the proper market mix, and so we're likely to want more townhouse units than 2/2s. The 2/2s themselves as well, and I know this is a rough drawing, don't appear to have enough driveway apron space for parking and for access to them. So it's probably going to mean reconfiguration of in that respect as well. It also, and we don't have any calculations, it also appeared to us that this has more impervious area than our plan did. One of the goals of the master plan is to limit impervious cover, and in this area there has been some flooding in the neighborhood, so we're particularly conscientious about limiting impervious cover. So we've got some concerns about those as well. In all due respect, we don't think a park area along East Jefferson is the preferred location for that. We think people like a more private, quiet place to sit and to gather and to recreate rather than on a busy road like East Jefferson. So we're not sure that would be accommodated, but there are suggestions in here that we would work with. And so what I would suggest on this part of it is that we schedule a meeting today, if possible, for say 2 weeks out, if that works for our team, by which time we can dig into your suggestions more and see how many of them we can accommodate. We can either do that right now, or if you want to, email later.
Yeah, I think after the meeting, through Troy, we can set up like a particular meeting just for the design layout and the site layout, and we are more than happy to answer. Like, I have answers to all of those questions, but we are in a very limited time here, but we can discuss all of that. And as far as 2/2, since that's a very quick answer, like that was just like a suggestion, like depending on your pro forma and how much unit mix you're gonna have, like we just like suggesting that if there is a 2/2s and a bigger unit, those are needs to sit on the major roadway, which is your the one showing with the red line and also facing East Jefferson. But then obviously it's based on the need and the unit mix that you would like to have. And then also what I'm showing here as a yellow is just like a average townhouse. I know you are offering like 16-foot wide all the way to 22-foot wide. So that demising wall is just like very averagely being divided. Definitely, like when you go to the more defined design, then you have like a better handle on the unit mix and then the unit count as well.
Okay, great. I thank you for appreciating those issues to us. By the way, Troy, the comments on modifying the SOJ, we agree with that, and we're going to look at the public benefit points more carefully as well. So we'll be redoing that. Let me ask one sort of central question here. Yeah.
Bob, could I jump in for 1 second? Natasha, this is Andy Brown. I'm one of the developers. Can you tell what the roadway section width? I know it's a hand drawing and it looks great. What roadway section or what right of way width did you use for the main roads, the red road and the blue road?
Yeah, for the red road, I think we were thinking like one way in, one way out with parallel parking on both sides of it. So that would be like a curb to curb roadway. And then for the blue one, I was able to fit on the street parking in one side of it, not on both sides.
Okay, but
yeah,
like this. Andy, to answer your question, if you have two travel lanes and on-street parking on both sides on the red road, that is a dimension of about 22, 30, 38 feet. And then you'll need, some dimension for a street tree panel. That'll be about 6 feet. and then you'll need a sidewalk of at least 5 feet. So that's another 22 feet on each side of that. So that gets you up to 40, 60. And then, you need some dimension between the back of the sidewalk and the front of the house so you can have a lead walk and stoops and things like that. And that depends on what your treatment of the facade is, whether it's a porch or a stoop or, landing stairs, what have you. So right away, I think can be 60 or less with on-street parking on both sides. And then the rest of the dimension is really a factor of how tight the front yards are and how they're landscaped and how you get into those units from the ground floor. That particularly will come into play when you do 2/2s because you're going to have staircases going up to the upper floor levels, and we'll have to work with you on that. But from a fire truck access perspective, we need 20-foot free and clear, and so that is kind of the dictating factor in the travel lane dimension to be the minimum of that, and then we go from there.
Thank you. That's helpful as we look at the layout.
Yeah. Thank you, Atul, for chiming in. And the other thing I forgot to mention was you guys were proposing like a front-loaded townhomes at the western portion of the site, and that's something that kind of like diminished the streetscape along it, having all of those driveways facing the road and conflicting with the pedestrian movements. And that was one thing that we tried to eliminate it in our sketch. So none of our townhomes that we are proposing here are front-loaded. And that's reducing the pervious space as well as creating a better streetscape along the frontage of the homes. So I just want to mention that.
And Natasha,
Okay.
This is Pete. I'm also one of the developers. I just want to thank you again for this. This is a lot of time, and there's a lot of good stuff in here, which we appreciate.
Sure.
Maybe before that meeting that we schedule, we could have some email communication just to confirm some of these dimensions, so that we're not just writing it all down on the fly. Because there's a lot of stuff we'd like in here, and we just want to make sure we're getting the proper amount of dimensioning on some of the issues that need to be.
Yeah, sure. So if you
addressed.
think that would be helpful, when I get to my office, I can just quickly put some dimension on the road sections and the green and scan it and email it back to you guys.
That would be great.
Super helpful. The amount of time spent on this is just terrific. We really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. We are here to make this development even better than it was. So we appreciate your feedback as well, and we are here to continue the conversation.
Marie, I see Maria's on the line. I want to interject here one question to make sure that the primary access, a single point of access on East Jefferson, is okay with you. Obviously, we need to meet requirements for the alleys and width of the road that we've already been talking about. But both our initial plan and this plan show a single point of access. We have a limited frontage along East Jefferson and trying to limit impervious cover, et cetera. So I want to make sure that you are going to be okay with a single point of access.
First of all, let me apologize for the camera. I can't get it to work on this thing. You can only have 100 units on a single point of access. I did speak to Mike Goodman about that last week. Depends on how you change your layout. He had mentioned that 10 units are actually going to be facing out onto the main road, and then that would reduce your total number of units to below 100 inside that point of contact, that one point of access. So that's something you're going to have to bear in mind as you do your design.
Okay, perfect. Mike did share that thought with me, but I wanted to make sure I understood it correctly. Thank you for that. That gives us a lot of help in trying to look at alternative designs here. Let's see. Trying to look at what else I had. There was a comment in the site comments about this pathway, bicycle path, call it, at the western part of the site through the wooded area. and we are fine with including that in our area. But there was some talk about extending it farther to the south and even building a bridge. And I just want to make sure I manage people's expectations, because we have no control of anything off-site, nor do I think it's our obligation. If the county wants to extend it or other property owners want to extend it, we're all in. But I don't think we're going to be proposing any off-site improvements like that. We are proposing to connect it to the Evergreen School to the west of us, because they and we are on the same page on that. But again, we don't control the properties to the north and south. So I'm hoping that you're not expecting us to go off-site and make improvements like that.
I think we, I know that, I think, did that comment come from the Parks Department? Just wanted to confirm where you saw it from.
Oh, maybe it was the Parks Department. You're probably right. Yes, thank you.
If that's the case, we definitely want to look at it in more detail. I can't confirm or deny the off-site requirements. That's not like untypical in regards of off-site improvement, especially when you're talking about pedestrian connections, especially depending on what it's connecting to. And like I said, it's just more about looking at the details. So we just have to kind of visit where we're actually talking about those connections. Like, we do agree that there should be some type of pedestrian connection. To what extent, we just have to see what those details are. And we are at sketch. So conceptually, you kind of lay out those connections now, and then the details are kind of fine-tuned all the way through to the site plan element. So at least right now, we will want to probably identify the opportunities and see the constraints. But like I said, just wanted to probably put more emphasis on us. Just need to look at it some more to see what we're actually asking for.
Okay. Well, all right. Thanks for listening to us on that. The other thing where I want to, push back a little bit on staff, and I forget who it was, maybe Natasha, had suggested live-work units, and I think her plan showed several there along the park that she shows. In all honesty, we think the whole live-work environment has changed dramatically in the last couple of years, and live-work now is better exhibited by this DRC meeting, where a number of the people on this call are live-working right now from their home. That, we think, is what the future of live-work is, and not so much the Kentlands version from Andres Dwani of 40 years ago. And so we are anticipating that the units will be designed to accommodate today's live-work environment, but we don't really see a market for the Andres Dwani live-work units. So we don't think we're going to be coming back to propose that, and I just want you to appreciate where we're coming from.
Yeah, sure, Robert. Yeah, go ahead, that's all.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'll chime in later.
I was trying to explain that, I think one of the comments that we had was regarding the public benefit point. And we were suggesting that you use the category of providing a small retail or live work to create, to bring your points up to 100. And we thought that if that's the route that you are going, the location of live work or retail facing that plaza on East Jefferson would be the most appropriate one. So that was one of the suggestions that we had. But definitely we can talk about that more. Again, I want to emphasize that green that's facing the East Jefferson, it's creating a more inviting environment to the public versus the small green inside the development, which will bring the feeling of it's only for the resident of the development and not open to the public. So by providing it right on the East Jefferson, and we also thought that would be more like an urban plaza rather than a big green area with a lot of lawn. So if you guys providing retail or live work, we thought that would be the great location for it right on the urban plaza. So that was a suggestion. We can discuss it further based on the location of the open space.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
We know we need to look at the public benefit points. So we will be looking at all aspects of that. We
Yeah,
also,
Bob, I think it's tied into the comment about the public benefit points and making sure that the public open space is, some of it can be for designed explicitly for the use and comfort of your residents, but some of it needs to be provided in a more public setting so that it is an amenity for the greater public. And as in the intent of the CR zones is to promote mixed-use development. So when we looked at this plan, it seemed to us that a potential way to diversify the uses could be live work. So that's where that comment came from. But happy to talk more and look at the overall discussion on the public benefit points with your team and work through that.
Okay, fair enough. As an aside, there were some comments about how to reconfigure the frontage on East Jefferson Street, and we thought there were some useful ideas there that we are looking at as well to really make that area more of a public area along the lines of what you're saying. Right now, we're not thinking of a park like this, but we are thinking of, sidewalk and bikeway connections and maybe a double row of trees and stuff to make it, more inviting. But we'll work on that and then get back to you with a revised plan.
That sounds good.
And this is Alan Ross. I made his comments about the design of Private Street B, the north to south connection. So it's great to hear that you guys are thinking about that as it relates to overall connectivity. But we had some comments regarding its design. It appeared that one side was only being configured for sidewalks and the other side was mainly just configured for driveways. And given the timeliness of this project with an adjacent property to the south that's redeveloping for daycare use, now would be a great time to start discussing how those two properties connect, as well as, the design suggestions that Natasha had made before.
Exactly. We are aware that property is in for some kind of an approval, so, some collaboration would be useful.
I have a call scheduled tomorrow with the asset manager for that to get their latest plan for the reconfiguration and the daycare. Did that require a site plan amendment, or are they in for a particular approval?
Yeah,
they
just came in, I think, last week for the approval of the change in use for the daycare, and I think they got another active, or expected to have at least another active plan for that site. But they've already got approval last week of at least the daycare use.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we're going to want to follow up with, I think, 2 meetings. One that we've mostly been talking around here, and that is with park and planning design people to figure out something. And I guess we can do that offline. But, if people are around in mid-August, I'm thinking, it might take us a week or 2 to go back to the drawing board. And then, so we'll propose some times maybe. But then secondly, the DOT comments they're integral to that as well. And Mike, you haven't really been given a chance to speak because I've hogged the microphone, but do we want to set up a meeting with DOT exclusively to talk about right-of-way widths and that sort of thing as a precursor to the design meeting?
Well, I guess we'll see what Natasha sends us as far as those dimensions for the roads, and we can verify that they're matching up with what DOT was suggesting. It seemed like they were looking for larger sidewalks than what was being said. But if we can keep the right of ways to be appropriate for the roads, then maybe a meeting with DOT isn't needed. It just would be good to know that the dimensions that were being provided are the ones that we can use for the layout.
Are y'all providing private roads or public roads internally to the site, or is the DOT comments tied to Jefferson?
DOT comments
commented on both.
Yeah, I can answer. We recommended something for the privates based on complete streets. But since everything's changing, we can look at it again. But again, it's private streets. We were making a recommendation. We can talk after.
Okay. Totally fine. I just wanted to make sure we were getting the right classification for the roads, whether they're going to be. But so we are talking about on private roads for this project, correct?
Correct.
Yes. All right. So it seems that maybe, we can table DOT until we refine the concept plan with park and planning staff, and then run it by DOT to make sure the revisions satisfy your requirements.
Yeah,
Well,
Bob, our discussion around the street sections and dimensions will closely adhere to the complete streets document as well. So I think what we recommend hopefully will be in line with what DOT is expecting or recommending as well for the private streets.
Okay.
I think we need a clarification on the sidewalks, because I heard 5-foot sidewalks earlier when we were talking about the plan that Natasha did, but DOT was requesting 9.5 to 10-foot sidewalks. And, that makes a big difference in the road section.
That was based on what you had provided. So yeah, again, we can talk about what Natasha has sent you after.
Yeah, and Andy, this is precisely why we need to look at this as a hierarchy of street types. Some streets might be very tertiary in nature and more residential, whereas some might require a little bit more. And the complete streets does have a range of dimensions for the facilities, and it's not uncommon for us to use that as a starting point and then sort of figure out the exact requirements for that. So we'll work with you and work with DOT to get to a good place.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. That's all I had. Andy, Mike, Pete, any further comments, questions from you guys?
Nothing from me. Thank you all for your time.
Yeah,
I had one more. Have y'all had conversations with the North Connection with the Kaiser property, or have y'all thought about any conversations with them with that North Connection, along with I heard you said you had a conversation, starting to have a conversation about the South Connection.
Yes, I reached out to that team early, and it's, as you might imagine, with a big organization, they have sort of 4 people that represent their asset and property management. What I gleaned from them is that they do not have any immediate plans to change any part of it. They're proposing I asked if they had any redevelopment plans. They do not. I've given them copies along the way of our plan, but I will follow up again with them just to confirm that they don't have anything imminent in the next 5 or so years. But obviously, we would provide the ability to connect if and when they do redevelop.
Got it. Yep, no worries. Like I said, just wanted to understand the conversation that was happening, knowing that you had these 2 private properties that's going to dictate if these connections are going to occur or not going to occur. So,
right.
We're about
Okay.
out of time.
I'm sorry, Neil? Yeah. Okay. All right. Ball's back in our court to reflect on Natasha's plan here and the other comments. We'll set up something and double back with you folks. But Natasha, you'll send us some data on what you're seeing in terms of right of way and that sort of thing.
Yeah, sure. I try to get it to you by end of the day today or early morning.
Perfect. Okay.
Great.
Thanks Neil.
Everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Looking forward to working more with you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Number 2, Greg Road Solar Project. This meeting is recorded, live streamed, and it's for the applicant to have questions answered from the staff. So if Katie, you would go ahead and start, and then we can keep it moving. Thank you.
Hey, Angela, I think it's actually for a different project. We're here for Chevy Chase Section 4D. It's an admin
Oops,
sub.
I'm sorry, wrong
No
agenda.
worries. Do you want me to?
agenda.
No, I
Nope.
know you're ahead of the game.
Chevy Chase Section 4D. My apologies.
No sweat.
Thank you.
Okay. So as Angela mentioned, we're here for Chevy Chase Section 4D. That is Administrative Subdivision Plan number 620220090, located at 4201 East West Highway. It's located just east of downtown Bethesda, and it's subject to the 1990 Bethesda Chevy Chase Master Plan. Currently, it's improved with one house, and the project proposes to subdivide into 3 lots with frontage on the Sleaford Road right-of-way, which will be improved with a future shared use path, which connects to the purple line over here to, technically, I think it's the north. This is oriented differently. We have East West Highway as a secondary frontage over here. So I'm going to quickly run through the highlights, and then I'll turn it over to the applicant to have questions. And of course, also, if the other agency reviewers want to chime in, please feel free to do so. So let's see here. All right. So first thing, when it comes to area site design, as we're taking our frontage cues from Sleaford Road right-of-way, we would really encourage you to design these such that they really embrace that frontage. We've given you some photo examples of what we're thinking about. So, certainly putting in some vegetation, but maybe not trying to have hedges or walls to try to embrace this porosity. Looking at maybe some pedestrian connections out here to the trail, low fencing, that sort of thing. I have 4 points for environmental review that I want to touch on. Given the proximity of the lots to the arterial roadway, a noise analysis is going to be required. Per the 1990 Bethesda Chevy Chase Master Plan, East-West Highway is a green corridor, which requires maintenance and enhancement of vegetation. Other things to keep in mind here is that specifically the master plan recommends a landscaped buffer between the curb and sidewalk, placing trees and medians along curbs, screening the front yard parking, and relocating utility poles to allow for optimum tree planting and sidewalks. And we'll touch on that again also in the transportation review. But just one more note on that. As a practice, the board has protected such green corridors with a Category 2 conservation easement, which may be necessary in this case. The environmental reviewer also notes that there's currently no proposal for mitigation plantings for the proposed removal of a 39-inch tulip poplar. A variance request is required for the proposed impacts to the specimen tree. However, following that review of the staff's comments, the applicant has since reached out to staff regarding a possible forest conservation exemption, which is a separate review. And if that's pursued, it must be confirmed prior to the action on this administrative subdivision application and may still require mitigation plantings for the removal of the specimen tree per Chapter 22A-6. An exemption, however, would eliminate the need for a forest conservation plan and variance request. And then finally, under the environmental review, need to show critical root zones for the edge and offsite trees impacted by the plan. All right. The next thing that was kind of hinted at in the environmental review, we're going to move on to transportation. And we've got a couple of different agencies that are contributing to that. First, this does not qualify for a de minimis payment in lieu of frontage improvements. So we will be looking for frontage improvements along East-West Highway. Taking notes from the Complete Streets Design Guidelines, we will be looking for a buffer and a shared use path. We have some limited flexibility on the dimensions of those. And right now staff is suggesting a 6-foot buffer and a 10-foot shared use path, which seems to fit within the setback that's being shown here and within the already dedicated right-of-way. Let's see. We also need to show a 2-foot maintenance buffer along the south side. Oh, sorry. These are 2 recommendations for the right-of-way abandonment. So the planning department provided some comments earlier last year, which this right-of-way abandonment is still pending, but we recommend there's 2 conditions of that approval. So the first is that the subject abandonment must show us record plat a 2-foot maintenance buffer along the south side of the master plan pedestrian bicycle off-street connection to the Georgetown Branch Trail. And then the applicant needs to coordinate with MTA and the Montgomery County Department of Transportation, PEPCO, and other relevant agencies to record all necessary easements for those 2 storm drains and the overhead electrical. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. We just want to make sure that gets recorded. Storm drain will need to be put into easements, and the storm drain view is acceptable. Fire and rescue has some concerns. Mainly what was highlighted in our pre-DRC discussions was permeable pavement is not eligible for vehicular access. So please work with Marie to figure out what's acceptable for here. And DPS is still conducting their stormwater management review, and that's something that we need to get settled. That is it for our comments. I think that's probably a lot for an administrative subdivision. I'm ready to discuss schedule after we have this discussion, and then we'll wrap up after that.
Good morning, Jeff Robertson with Cass Engineering again. Some of my associates are also with me. Stephanie Fisher, I think Kurt Schreffler's here, and the applicant Damon Orbona is along with us too. So they may chime in or jump in as I go over some of this stuff. Well, Katie, that was pretty fast. I can't speak in complete sentences like that in that quick of a response, but I just want to go through a couple of these. I want to start with Marie. I think she's here, and then
Yep, I'm here.
And then move to some of the environmental comments after that. So Marie, the comment regarding the permeable pavement for the turnaround area where the fire department access route is there an exemption to that?
There's no exemption to life safety code in the state of Maryland. Fire department access falls under life safety code.
So what's the rationale that a permeable pavement cannot be used for fire access?
You're certainly welcome to propose one. I've just never been able to approve one.
We had one approved last year under
It's been installed?
No, it was under a preliminary plan.
So I've actually have approved permeable pavement in the past for certain applications. This one's not going to qualify because these are single family homes. This is not going to be an HOA parcel to be maintained by an HOA. It's just going to be these homeowners. So I'm not saying that it's applicable here anyway. But usually these surfaces become cost prohibitive to actually install. Everyone I have approved has come back for modification at some point because they are cost prohibitive. But again, if you'd like to propose it, you'll need to detail the subgrade, you'll need to detail the surface, you need to get a manufacturer certification. There's a lot to getting a new surface approved for fire department access. But again, this is not an HOA parcel, so I'm still not going to be inclined to accept.
Okay, so if there's a way to design the pavement that supports the loading for 90,000 pounds, it's something you would consider? Is that the main
It's
crux
something
of the issue?
that can be considered if there's a good maintenance project, a maintenance plan entity in place to take care of it. That's not going to be the case here. So again, this is not a good application for this product.
Okay, we'll look into that in a little bit more detail and see what we can come up with. Obviously, the challenge here is meeting stormwater management requirements on these small encumbered lots. But we'll have a closer look at that and work with you on that one.
I look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Your other comments were noted, and we have no questions or issues with those. Getting into some of the environmental comments, I did speak with Saquon yesterday regarding the exemption. So that may be something that we will pursue. I recognize that under the exemption, there's a mitigation requirement for the specimen tree removal. Saquon, do you have any thoughts on how we might plant for that mitigation as it relates to all these easements and utilities and things of that nature? Will we be able to use flowering trees or smaller trees rather than canopy trees in that situation? Saquon here?
I think he's in the room with Neil. I think that's where I heard him. If you guys can't unmute, do you feel like you could maybe chat your response and we can just read them into the record?
So I guess, Katie, this is the reason for in-person meetings, right? We were just
Yeah.
talking about this.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. I was just telling you, we've nailed it. We figured it out, and then I eat my words. Okay.
I mean, we can have follow-up conversation on this if we need to. But I think as Jeff was alluding to, this is a very, very tight site. Obviously, we're trying our best to figure it all out. So I think the question is whether there's flexibility on the size of these plantings.
That's fair. And I am taking notes as we're talking. So, and I know that Saquon is, listening in here, but we will make sure that we follow up and touch base on that. Okay.
All right, so we'll table the environmental questions. If we could get into a little bit the right-of-way improvements.
Sure.
Jeff, can you hear us now?
Ooh, there you are.
Oh, sorry, we're working through some technical difficulties.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm hearing the echo. Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit about the right-of-way.
So the recommendation here was for a 6-foot buffer, right? So just so I understand it, the existing 5-foot sidewalk would be removed.
Mm-hmm.
That would be then restored into some sort of green panel. And then there would be a 10-foot shared use path or side path, as it's called. That that location would require that all the existing vegetation there be removed.
Mm-hmm.
Which seems a little bit contrary to some of the green corridor language.
Well, but then that 6-foot buffer does allow for you to replant in there, which we would certainly be looking for.
Okay, so those trees get removed, replanting in the buffer.
Yeah.
And then what goes behind the walk then? That's just green space?
Yes, I mean, we would encourage you to also plant there, but that's certainly not the requirement. And then one other point of clarification I want to make too is that we'll be looking for tapering on either side to the existing sidewalk. So that's just something to factor into your design.
Yeah, I think the whatever it is could connect to the path for the purple line.
That'd be great.
On the other side, it just kind of runs into the apron, to the
I see what you're
driveway
saying.
apron.
Yeah, no, and as long as that works well, that's fine. And as a point there too, our design in Montgomery County is to maintain the same grade across the driveway. So just thinking about how that works, because we want to keep our cross slopes as low as possible. So for ADA access, does that make sense? Am I clear?
I mean,
Okay.
It's a little challenging because there's a natural topography there of a 2-foot
Sure.
drop, across that driveway apron.
Okay.
I don't know that there's a way to, mitigate that too much. It's a pretty steep section of roadway there.
Right.
But we can have a closer look at that. Is there a?
Can I just jump in? I'm sorry, Jeff. Can I just jump in real quick with a follow-up question on that? So just from my own understanding, so if we were to remove all of these trees that are existing in the right-of-way,
Mm-hmm.
replant street trees, is that a location where we could put the mitigation planting requirement? Would that work?
That's a good question for Saquon.
I think I can chime in now. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear. Perfect.
Okay, great. So no, typically mitigation trees wouldn't go in the right of way. They would be within the site itself, just for the maintenance of those, because roadway trees are managed differently than on-site trees. And just touching back on the previous comment, the mitigation trees are typically selected based on the size and character of the tree removed. So ornamentals will be tough there. We can work with you on identifying ideal locations and species that may work with you on this tight lot. But as it stands right now, I can't give you a thumbs up on the ornamental or flowering smaller trees.
Okay.
Understood.
Is there a avenue to lessen this shared use path in its width. I know you've asked for a 10-foot side path. One of the concerns I have with that is how we address stormwater management associated with that path, and whether or not that path can be permeable pavement. I don't know if the state accepts permeable pathways and what that material would look like.
Okay. So what I appreciate is you setting expectations about some possible challenges. What I think would be helpful to us, because you have some more time to submit for, we have 2 rounds of review that are available to you. What I'd like you to do is look into these, and where it's really infeasible, let us know. But if it works, we'd really like to push for that configuration.
Okay.
So yeah, so just let us know where you're at and just document everything. So if you're running into trouble, we can have those discussions. And we're also happy to meet with you before you submit. If you'd prefer, you're welcome to submit some exhibits before you have your full submittal, if that makes things easier for you. We're around and available.
Have you seen permeable pavement used in this particular or in an application such as this?
Great question. I have seen it, but I'm racking my brain to determine if it was on SHA roadway or not, because I know in a past life I used to work for the city of Rockville, and I think along Wooten Parkway, where their big Beltway trail is, parts of it are permeable pavement, but I'm not sure if that's on state right of way. So let's talk with Quasi and see what they're open to.
Okay.
Hey, good morning. This is Quasi. I know we don't
hey, Quasi.
allow permeable pavement to address stormwater management. So that's, I know that came up on previous projects. So not for stormwater management.
So no permeable pavement. So stormwater management could be provided. What would you accept for a stormwater management in this particular case? Any thoughts?
Not off the top of my head. I'd have to talk with my hydraulic guy to see what we allow.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the topography of the site, and it kind of, it's such that it would flow directly kind of to the top of the page, for lack of a better explanation, to the north. So it doesn't seem like we could get this thing pitched much back into the lawn, but maybe we could. All right, well, we'll look into that too. See what we can come up with and continue that effort. Some of the other comments, I'm going to move along here. I assume that the comments relating to kind of the design of the houses, and Katie mentioned to embrace the Sleaford right-of-way, are recommendations, right? Like,
yeah,
not going to be.
Jeff, I'll jump in with that. Like, that's something that I've been working with planning staff on, and that is the anticipation that we're going to try to do our best to activate the trailscape there. So we don't really need to discuss that stuff right now.
Okay. Katie, you mentioned the possibility of a Cat 2
yes.
Adjacent to the green corridors. Is that right?
And again, so let me, Saquon, do you mind jumping in on this one? He's asking about the Category 2 easement that may be required for the green corridor.
So just outside the right-of-way adjacent to the green corridor that's there existing now with the pine trees, we'd look for something along there to enhance and add to the corridor that's existing and that you potentially replant based on discussion today.
So that's a 10-foot PUE along the entire frontage and around east-west, or around Sleaford, the Sleaford right-of-way. So
okay,
does that mean the Cat 2 would be on the other side of the PUE, adjacent to the houses?
I think I'd have to take a closer look at that just to see and have some discussion internally to see what makes sense there. We don't want to encumber the lots and push the easement too far back where it doesn't contribute to the corridor and have a gap there. So we'll figure out what makes the most sense and have some discussion there.
All right, sounds good. There was a comment about a planting plan. Is the planting plan just basically for the mitigation trees, or is it intended to be more detailed than that?
Katie, feel free to jump in, but I think what the planting plan will also help with is helping show how you would treat the frontage on the trail as well, so we can get a better idea of how that's being framed with the with any plantings there, and as well as any built environment aspects, just to get a better sense of the design you're envisioning for that.
Right, and we'll also be seeing some of that addressed in the cross section that's required for East-West Highway, showing how you organize your streetscape.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was about to say. I think my kind of interpretation of the comments here was that you guys are very interested along the streetscape along East-West Highway, and that's kind of what you're asking for here with the cross section. Is that right, Katie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And East-West Highway as well as the trail, the future trail, right?
Well, there's going to be a lot of utility easements along the trail. So just I think you guys are aware of that with the abandonment. Saquon, I'm not sure if you were involved in the abandonment, but Katie's certainly aware of that. So that limits a little bit of the plantings, but obviously, I mean the point has been conveyed, and we're anticipating these homes will be designed in a way that really helps activate the Sleaford Road trail in connection to the Capitol Crescent Trail and the Purple Line. That's that's the vision for the project. So the point has been taken there.
Okay.
This is Atul Sharma. I'm with the Deputy Director's Office for Design and Development Review. I think what Saquon is stating here is correct in that, there are utility requirements, there are grade issues, and then there is this acknowledgement that the houses need to kind of, embrace the trail. So having a plan and a section that shows that space between the quote unquote the facade of the house down to the trail is going to be helpful for us to understand, how you are articulating the landscape elements and the in terms of street trees, the heights of walls or fences or what have you, to really give us the assurance and comfort that the proposal here is as you stated.
And so just to wrap up this, I think what will be helpful is as we have these discussions, I know normally we kind of keep environment and transportation separate, but if you can include Saquon and I on your correspondence, that way we can be more efficient with our reviews to make sure that we're not giving you contradictory feedback and we can kind of help you move it along.
Good.
Okay. I want to turn it over to Mark Etheridge over at DPS to talk a little bit about some floodplain issues, if that's all right.
Hey guys. We do have a stormwater concept in for review. That's correct. We have not finished the review yet, but we have noticed clearly that there's a very large area being piped through the site right next to it in that large culvert system, which carries a floodplain. So before we approve the concept, we're going to require a floodplain study so that we can see what the effects of that are going to be in terms of passage of those flows and not putting these new homes at risk. So we're going to have a floodplain study done. I think Bill Musico is on in the meeting right now too online, and we can certainly meet with the engineers offline to do that. Just want to make you know we have concerns about it and that we will be requiring a floodplain study before we move forward.
Hey Mark, thanks. Was there a study done with the storm drain design for the right away?
Don't know about that. I know the storm drain itself, the plans I saw were from the 60s with WSSC. They don't match what's in the field, unfortunately, so I don't know what the history of that is.
I did a search and I was not able to find a floodplain delineation study for this region.
So, Bill, do you have any? I mean, we have some storm drain plans that reflect the upgrade and improvements that were recently installed out there. Do you have access to those?
we have access. We can see online the GIS layers that DOT has shared showing the storm drain network. The condition is whether those will be allowed to convey the full or a partial amount of the floodplain through a structure. It's DPS policy that we assume that the inlets are to be clogged and that the floodplain delineation needs to look at the overland path of the floodplain.
Hey, Jeff, I see those are MTA plans. If you have access to them and you can make those available to us, that would be wonderful.
I will do that.
We'd love to see what they did with those recent improvements.
Yeah, I'll do that this morning, guys. Yep, and then we can kind of continue this discussion as well.
It's just kind of a big topic. I don't want to get pushed to the end of the meeting and not be able to mention that this could be a holdup.
No, that's a very valid point. I appreciate that. All right, Damon, you have any other questions or comments?
No, I mean, the thing that Mark just brought up, I don't really understand. So that I need to wrap my head around. That sounds very troubling. Probably, well, I don't know. I just need to understand what it is that you're asking for. But I'll talk to you offline about that, Jeff, and hopefully we get this figured out quickly.
Yep. Kurt, Stephanie, any other questions?
No, I don't have anything.
All right, then I will close us out with the schedule for this. So your first resubmittal will be due August 17th, and your final submittal, that's the one that's most important, is September 29th. Next thing is the agency letters. We'll be looking for those September 13th. And right now we're assuming this is going to the board October 13th. We'll keep you posted if there's any reason why that would change, but that seems to be our target.
So this is going to the board.
We're still figuring that out. I think this may be eligible to be handled administratively, but I think given some of these other issues, if we can't solve them quickly, it may make more sense to take it to the board. Damon, do you have a question?
I would urge you not to go to the board until we get the floodplain study ironed out, because that could have an effect on the ability to subdivide the property.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that.
And you, Katie, you said 10/13 for the board tentatively?
Yeah, tentatively scheduled. That's pending everything working out.
Okay. All right. We will be in touch very shortly.
Great.
Thank
you
all.
guys so much. Angel, is there anything else we need to do?
No,
All right.
that's it. As long as no one has any other comments, you guys have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.